The aircraft carrier was dead in the water, engines failing, enemy missiles incoming. All pilots were grounded, no backup available. Then from the storm clouds came a lone F-35 with a call sign that made every sailor freeze. Steel Phoenix, a pilot who'd been declared KIA 2 years ago, but was about to save 5,000 lives. Welcome to Secrets Never Told. Before we begin this incredible story of sacrifice, loyalty, and impossible returns, tell me in the comments what city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button and help us honor those who serve beyond the grave. The USS Ronald Reagan sat motionless in the South China Sea, her massive hull listing 3 degrees to starboard. What should have been a routine patrol had turned into a nightmare scenario that no amount of training could have prepared them for. The carrier's nuclear reactors had been damaged by a coordinated cyber attack that simultaneously crippled their propulsion systems and disabled their defensive networks. Captain Sarah Martinez stood on the bridge, her weathered face illuminated by the red glow of emergency lighting. At 52, she had commanded the Reagan for 3 years, but nothing in her distinguished career had prepared her for this moment. Through the rain-streaked windows, she could see the dark shapes of enemy vessels emerging from the storm front, their radar signatures growing stronger by the minute. "Status report," she barked to her communications officer. "Ma'am, main engines are completely offline. Backup power is holding, but we're running on fumes. Estimated 12 minutes before total system failure." Lieutenant Commander Johnson's voice was steady, but the fear was evident in his eyes. "Enemy fleet is 30 nautical miles out and closing. No response from Fleet Command." Martinez nodded grimly. The Reagan carried 5,000 souls, sailors, pilots, technicians, Marines. All of them were now sitting ducks in hostile waters, unable to defend themselves or escape. Their fighter wing was grounded due to catapult system failures caused by the same cyber attack that had crippled their engines. "What about our escorts?" Martinez asked, though she already knew the answer. "The destroyers Clark and Mitchell were hit with electromagnetic pulses 20 minutes ago. They're adrift. The submarine Hartford is trying to establish a defensive perimeter, but she can't surface in these seas." The situation was hopeless. Without propulsion, without air cover, without communication with the fleet, the Reagan was about to become the largest naval disaster in modern history. Martinez had already prepared the evacuation protocols, but in these storm conditions, launching lifeboats would be a death sentence for most of the crew. Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez, a 25-year veteran with graying temples and hands scarred from decades of maintenance work, stood in the carrier's hangar bay staring at the silent aircraft. F-35 Lightnings II, FA-18 Super Hornets, and EA-18G Growlers sat powerless, their sophisticated systems offline due to the electromagnetic interference. Rodriguez had seen combat in 3 different conflicts, but this felt different. This felt final. He walked slowly between the aircraft, his footsteps echoing in the vast space, checking fuel lines and weapon systems out of habit more than hope. That's when he heard it. A sound that shouldn't exist. The distant roar of jet engines approaching through the storm. Rodriguez stopped dead in his tracks, tilting his head to listen. The sound was getting closer, cutting through the howl of wind and rain like a blade through silk. "That's impossible," he whispered to himself. Every aircraft in the fleet was either grounded or destroyed. The nearest friendly airfield was 800 miles away, well beyond the range of any fighter aircraft. But the sound was unmistakable, the distinctive whistle of an F-35 Lightning II at full throttle. Rodriguez ran to the hangar bay opening, squinting through the storm. Lightning illuminated the churning seas in brief, brilliant flashes. And there, emerging from the black clouds like something out of a fever dream, was a lone F-35. The aircraft moved with impossible precision through the storm, its stealth profile cutting through the rain as if the weather posed no challenge at all. Rodriguez grabbed his radio with shaking hands. "Bridge, this is Rodriguez in the hangar bay. I've got eyes on an inbound F-35, requesting permission to land." Static crackled through the radio for several seconds before Captain Martinez's voice came through. "Rodriguez, that's impossible. All our birds are grounded, and there are no friendly aircraft within range." "Ma'am, I'm looking right at it." Single F-35, approaching from the northeast. It's requesting landing clearance. On the bridge, Martinez exchanged confused glances with her officers. Lieutenant Commander Johnson was already pulling up radar displays, his face pale in the electronic glow. "Captain, I'm showing a single contact on approach vector, but this doesn't make sense. The electromagnetic interference should make it impossible for any aircraft to navigate in these conditions." Martinez grabbed the radio. "Unknown aircraft. This is USS Ronald Reagan. Identify yourself immediately. State your call sign and mission." The response came through clearly clearly despite the storm, a voice that made every sailor on the bridge freeze where they stood. It was a woman's voice, calm and professional, but carrying a weight that spoke of impossible things. "Reagan, this is Steel Phoenix requesting immediate emergency landing. I'm here to provide close air support." The silence on the bridge was deafening. Steel Phoenix. Every naval aviator knew that call sign. Lieutenant Commander Elena Vasquez, the finest fighter pilot in the Navy's history, winner of the Top Gun trophy 3 years running. The woman who had single-handedly saved a Marine battalion in Syria by flying 7 consecutive sorties against overwhelming odds. Steel Phoenix had been declared killed in action 2 years ago when her F-35 disappeared during a classified mission over the Persian Gulf. Her body was never recovered. Her aircraft was never found. She had been posthumously awarded the Navy Cross for Valor. "That's impossible," Johnson whispered. "Steel Phoenix is dead." Captain Martinez stared at the radio in her hand. She had known Elena Vasquez personally, had watched her grow from a cocky young pilot into one of the most respected aviators in the fleet. She had also attended her memorial service 2 years ago. "Unknown aircraft," Martinez said slowly. "Steel Phoenix was lost in action 2 years ago. Identify yourself properly." The response came without hesitation. "Captain Martinez, this is Elena Vasquez. Call sign Steel Phoenix. I know you attended my memorial service. You spoke about how I always pushed the envelope too far. You were right then, and you're about to be grateful for it now." A chill ran down Martinez's spine. The voice was unmistakably Elena's, but how could that be possible? She looked at the radar display showing the approaching aircraft, then at the tactical situation showing enemy vessels closing in on their position. "Ma'am," Rodriguez's voice crackled through the radio. "She's requesting permission to land. Our catapult systems are down, but she says she doesn't need them." Martinez made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her career. "Steel Phoenix, you are cleared for emergency landing. All deck personnel, prepare for aircraft recovery." The F-35 touched down on the Reagan's flight deck with impossible precision. Despite the pitching seas and howling wind, the aircraft rolled to a stop near the island's superstructure, its engines winding down to an eerie silence. Chief Rodriguez and his maintenance team approached the aircraft cautiously. The F-35 looked exactly like every other Lightning II in the fleet, except for one detail that made Rodriguez's blood run cold. Along the nose of the aircraft, barely visible in the storm, was painted a phoenix rising from flames, not standard Navy marking. The canopy opened with a hydraulic hiss, and a figure in full flight gear climbed out. The pilot was average height, moving with the confident grace of someone who had spent thousands of hours in high-performance aircraft. When she removed her helmet, Rodriguez found himself staring at a face he recognized from countless briefings and award ceremonies. Elena Vasquez looked exactly as she had 2 years ago when she disappeared. Not older, not marked by whatever impossible journey had brought her here. Her dark hair was pulled back in the same regulation style. Her brown eyes held the same fierce intelligence that had made her legendary among naval aviators. "Chief Rodriguez," she said, her voice carrying clearly despite the storm. "I need immediate refuel and rearm. 30 minutes maximum." Rodriguez stammered, unable to form coherent words. This was impossible. He had seen the classified reports. Steel Phoenix's aircraft had been tracked disappearing into a massive storm system over the Persian Gulf. Satellite imagery showed the wreckage scattered across 50 square miles of ocean floor. "Ma'am, you're supposed to be dead." Elena's expression didn't change. "Death is a luxury I couldn't afford, Chief. Not when people needed me." She gestured toward the approaching enemy fleet. "Right now, this carrier and everyone on it needs me. Are you going to help, or are you going to waste time asking questions that don't have answers?" Within minutes, Elena was on the bridge, still wearing her flight suit, studying the tactical displays with the same intense focus that had made her famous. Captain Martinez stood beside her, struggling to process what she was seeing. "Elena, where have you been for 2 years? How is this possible?" Elena didn't look up from the radar screen showing the enemy fleet's approach. "Some missions don't end when you want them to, Sarah. Some fights follow you beyond the horizon." She pointed to the tactical display. 12 surface vessels, 2 submarines, coordinated attack pattern. They're jamming your communications and targeting your reactor to prevent nuclear retaliation. "How do you know all this?" "Because I've been tracking them for 8 months. This isn't random, Sarah. This is personal." The truth was more complex than Elena could explain. 2 years ago, her classified mission had led her deep into enemy territory, following intelligence about a new kind of warfare that blurred the lines between cyber attacks and conventional assault. She had discovered a shadow network of rogue military contractors working with foreign powers to develop untraceable attack systems. Operation Silent Storm had been Elena's final official mission. Intelligence suggested a terrorist cell was developing electromagnetic pulse weapons capable of disabling entire naval fleets. Elena's job was reconnaissance only. Observe, document, document, and report back. But what she found was far worse than anyone had imagined. The facility wasn't just developing EMP weapons. They were perfecting a new form of warfare that could remotely hijack and control military systems. Imagine enemy forces taking control of an entire aircraft carrier, turning its own weapons against American cities. The implications were catastrophic. Elena had watched from the shadows as they demonstrated their technology on captured American drones, making them turn against their own operators. She saw classified Navy communication codes being cracked in real time. She witnessed the systematic dismantling of American technological superiority by people who had once sworn the same oath she had. When her cover was blown during extraction, Elena faced an impossible choice. She could return to base with her intelligence and watch helplessly as bureaucracy and politics delayed action for months. Meanwhile, the enemy would perfect their weapons and disappear into the shadows. Or she could stay behind and fight a war that officially couldn't exist. The decision came when she watched them execute 3 captured American intelligence officers who had discovered their operation weeks earlier. Their bodies were dumped into unmarked graves, while their families back home believed they were safely stationed in Europe. That night, Elena made a choice that would define the rest of her life. She chose to become a ghost. Using her captured F-35 and intelligence gathered during her mission, Elena began a 2-year campaign of shadow warfare. She infiltrated enemy facilities, stole their technology, and systematically dismantled their network one operation at a time. She learned to operate without support, without backup, without official sanction. Elena discovered that the same group responsible for hijacking the Reagan had been behind 17 other attacks on American forces over the past 2 years. Each time, they used their electromagnetic warfare to disable American systems before launching conventional attacks. Each time, they disappeared without a trace, leaving behind no evidence of their involvement. She had tracked their movements across 3 continents, learned their pattern, identified their key personnel. Elena had become something between a pilot and a phantom, using captured enemy resources to fight a war that no government could acknowledge. The attack on the Reagan wasn't random. It was a field test for their most ambitious operation yet. The simultaneous hijacking of the entire Pacific Fleet during a major military exercise scheduled for the following month. Elena had intercepted their communications 3 weeks earlier and had been positioning herself to stop them. "The jamming will clear in 20 minutes, Elena said with certainty. "That's when their main assault begins. They're expecting to find you helpless and defenseless." "We are helpless and defenseless," Martinez replied grimly. Elena smiled for the first time since arriving, and Rodriguez saw the same fierce confidence that had made her legendary. "No, Sarah, you're not. You have me." But Elena knew something the others didn't. This wasn't just about saving the Reagan. The enemy had positioned submarine-launched drones throughout the area, preparing to document the carrier's destruction for propaganda purposes. If Elena couldn't stop this attack, the footage would be used to demonstrate American vulnerability to potential adversaries worldwide. More critically, the technology being tested here would be refined and sold to the highest bidders. Within a year, every enemy of America would have the capability to disable entire military installations with the push of a button. Elena's mission wasn't just to save 5,000 lives on the Reagan. It was to prevent a new form of warfare that could cripple American military power permanently. As she prepared for takeoff, Elena performed a ritual she had developed during her 2 years in the shadows. She touched a small photograph tucked into her flight suit, a picture of the 3 intelligence officers she had watched die, the ones whose families still didn't know the truth about their sacrifice. "This one's for you too," she whispered. Chief Rodriguez noticed something else as Elena's F-35 prepared for vertical takeoff. Along the side of the aircraft, barely visible in the storm, were 23 small marks. Each one represented a successful mission during her 2 years of ghost operation. 23 times Elena had appeared where she was needed, struck with surgical precision, and disappeared without a trace. This would be number 24. For 2 years, Elena had operated without support, without backup, without official sanction. She had stolen enemy aircraft, infiltrated secure facilities, and systematically dismantled the network responsible for the attacks now crippling the Reagan. She had become something between a pilot and a phantom, using captured enemy resources to fight a war that no government could acknowledge. "The jamming will clear in 20 minutes, Elena said with certainty. "That's when their main assault begins. They're expecting to find you helpless and defenseless." "We are helpless and defenseless," Martinez replied grimly. Elena smiled for the first time since arriving, and Rodriguez saw the same fierce confidence that had made her legendary. "No, Sarah, you're not. You have me." 30 minutes later, the F-35 launched from the Reagan's deck without catapult assistance, using a vertical takeoff that should have been impossible in the storm conditions. Elena's aircraft aircraft disappeared into the clouds like smoke, leaving only the thunder of her engines echoing across the water. The enemy fleet was 15 nautical miles out when Steel Phoenix engaged. What followed was aviation warfare unlike anything in military history. Elena's F-35 moved through the storm like it was part of the weather itself, appearing and disappearing between lightning strikes. Her attacks were surgical, precise, and devastating. But Elena wasn't fighting alone. During her 2 years in the shadows, she had developed tactics that no military academy taught. She had learned to use weather systems as weapons, electromagnetic interference as camouflage, and enemy technology against itself. The first destroyer never saw her coming. Elena's F-35 materialized from a lightning flash, her missiles striking the ship's radar array with pinpoint accuracy. The explosion lit up the storm clouds, but by the time the debris settled, she was already gone. The second ship's captain thought he was prepared. They had activated their electromagnetic countermeasures, the same technology they had used to disable the Reagan. But Elena had spent 2 years studying their systems, learning their weaknesses. She knew exactly which frequency would penetrate their defenses. Her cannon fire stitched across the destroyer's communications mast with mechanical precision. Each round was placed to maximize damage while minimizing the risk of hitting the crew quarters. Elena wasn't just a phantom pilot, she was a surgical one, striking to disable rather than destroy whenever possible. "How is she doing this?" Johnson asked, watching the tactical display in amazement as enemy contacts disappeared one by one. "She's using the storm," Martinez realized. "The electromagnetic interference that's crippling us is also blinding them. She's navigating by instinct and experience." Rodriguez watched from the hangar bay, his weathered face pressed against the rain-streaked windows. In 30 years of naval service, he had never seen anything like this. Elena's F-35 moved through the storm like a ghost, appearing just long enough to strike before vanishing back into the clouds. But it wasn't just her flying skills that amazed him. It was her targeting. Every shot was calculated, every missile precisely placed. She wasn't just destroying enemy vessels. She was systematically dismantling their ability to coordinate attacks. The third enemy ship tried to retreat, but Elena anticipated their movement. She had studied their tactical doctrine during her 2 years of shadow operations. She knew they would fall back to a defensive formation, clustering their remaining ships for mutual protection. That's exactly what she wanted. Elena's F-35 climbed high into the storm clouds, using the electromagnetic interference to mask her approach. When she dove, it was with the fury of nature itself. Her missiles streaked through the rain like thunderbolts, each one finding its target with impossible accuracy. One by one, the enemy vessels found themselves blind, deaf, and defenseless. Their sophisticated jamming equipment, designed to cripple American naval forces, became useless against a pilot who had learned to fly by instruments that existed only in her memory. "She's not just fighting them," Martinez whispered, watching the tactical display. "She's teaching them. Every strike is a lesson in humility." Elena's voice crackled through the radio, calm and professional despite the chaos. "Reagan, this is Steel Phoenix. Enemy fleet is neutralized. Recommend immediate departure once your systems come online." The electromagnetic jamming began to clear as the enemy command ship lost power. One by one, the Reagan systems came back online. Emergency lighting gave way to normal illumination. The engines showed signs of restarting. "Steel Phoenix, return to base for recovery." There was a long pause before Elena's response. "Negative, Reagan. I have other commitments." "Elena, you can't just disappear again. We have questions. The Navy has questions. The Navy has answers, Sarah. They just don't like them. Tell them Steel Phoenix is still watching. Tell them some pilots never come home because home isn't safe while the mission continues." On the radar screen, Elena's aircraft was already fading into the storm, heading toward coordinates that didn't appear on any official map. Within minutes, she was gone, leaving only the burning wrecks of the enemy fleet as proof she had ever been there. Chief Rodriguez found something on the flight deck after the storm passed. Burned into the steel decking where Elena's F-35 had landed was a perfect outline of a phoenix, wings spread wide, rising from stylized flames. The metal was scorched black, but the image was clear and permanent. No amount of scrubbing would remove it. The official report listed the Reagan salvation as the result of mechanical failure in enemy systems due to electromagnetic interference. Elena Vasquez remained officially dead, her memorial plaque unchanged in the Naval Academy's Hall of Heroes. But among the crew of the Reagan, the story spread in whispers. The pilot who came back from the dead, the phantom who appeared when all hope was lost, the guardian angel who wore Navy wings and carried call sign Steel Phoenix. Some say she's still out there, flying missions that don't exist for a war that never officially began. Others claim she was just a shared hallucination brought on by stress and desperation. But every sailor who was on the Reagan that night tonight knows the truth. Steel Phoenix isn't dead. She's just fighting a different kind of war. The kind where heroes don't get parades because the battles can't be acknowledged. Sometimes the greatest service means accepting that history will never record your name, that gratitude will never be officially expressed, that sacrifice will remain forever secret. Have you ever known someone who gave everything for others and asked for nothing in return? Someone who disappeared not because they were lost, but because they found something more important than recognition. Share your story in the comments below and let us know what city you're watching from today. If this story moved you, subscribe to Secrets Never Told. We're here to honor the Phantom Guardians whose service continues beyond death, whose courage transcends official records, and whose loyalty knows no boundary between life and legend.